Good evening. I'm City of Kalamazoo Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain, and welcome to tonight's Kalamazoo City Commission meeting of Monday, August 16, 2021. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the City of Kalamazoo's Facebook page, as well as the City of Kalamazoo's YouTube channel. You can listen to tonight's meeting by calling area code 269-552-6425 and entering meeting ID number 952-8035-5930 when prompted. And you can also leave a public comment for tonight's meeting by calling area code 269-226-6573. And I'd like to turn tonight's meeting over to Mayor David Anderson.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. I appreciate it. It's so wonderful to get together with you on this beautiful Michigan evening. We will soon be calling roll call, but I just want to make sure for all of those of you who are in attendance that Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin is also here actively participating, but she has some internet problems, so she is on her phone this evening. You won't see her beautiful picture on your screen. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cunningham.
Here in the great city of Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Hess.
Here in the great city of Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Knott.
Here, Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Pradle.
Present in the city of Kalamazoo.
Commissioner Urban.
Here in the city of Kalamazoo.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Here in the city of Kalamazoo.
And Mayor Anderson.
Here in the city of Kalamazoo. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is the invocation, but I just want to take a moment in advance of that, just exercise, I guess, a privilege sitting in this seat, and that is that we have had a very, very sad community event happen within the last couple of days here in Kalamazoo, and that is the passing of Sheriff Deputy Ryan Proxmire. I wanted to just from where I work and my day job at Integrated Services of Kalamazoo, first thing this morning, my boss and executive director, Jeff Patton, asked all of us here at Integrated Services to take some time today remembering the service and mourning the tragic death this weekend of Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Deputy Ryan Proxmire. But in addition, there were members here who worked directly with Ryan Proxmire, and there was a few words I'd like to read from some remembrances that they made. They went on to say, thank you, Jeff Patton, for acknowledging this tragic loss and traumatic day for our community. I can say from personal experience that Deputy Proxmire dedicated his life to public service and always supported our work here at Integrated Services of Kalamazoo. On behalf of my team, we send our thoughts to his wife and 4 children and the dedicated first responders who we consider our co-workers just as much as we do our own team at Integrated Services. Just before our invocation then, I would like to take a moment for all of us to contemplate this loss and to spend a moment sending our prayers and wishes to his family and co-workers. Thank you. We are honored to have with us tonight Sister Betsy Mager from the Congregation of St. Joseph. Sister, please.
Thank you, Mayor David. I'd like to go to what happened this day a long time ago and what went on this day. And this is how it begins. So it might seem unusual, but stay with me. It'll get to a blessing. Okay. So on this day, August 16th in 1501, a block of marble had laid abandoned in Florence, Italy, courtyard, for 26 years. The original artist had long ago walked away saying it was too flawed to work with. But now a new artist thought he could see something beautiful in this marble. He was awarded a contract and began to create by chipping away all that wasn't needed for the image he could see. In Kalamazoo, 26 years ago, our economy reeled from the loss of a major employer when GM plant was shuttered. Many wondered if this area would continue to be a viable place to live. Michelangelo devoted 3 years of tireless effort to that stone. He followed his vision and transformed what was once abandoned and considered beyond redemption into the Renaissance masterpiece known simply as David. It is a marvel to behold for all of us, with the possible exception of Queen Victoria, who had a plaster fig leaf strategically placed on her copy of this statue. So Kalamazoo city leaders are now invited to take another look at a stone that was once feared too flawed. May you go forth with the wisdom trusting that, like Michelangelo, you will listen to the still small voice that guides you to see the masterpiece and chip away all the detritus that is in the way. The resources are here in the form of a 400 million chisel and mallet, so to speak. The resources are here, but it won't happen overnight. But imagine what there will be in the future for all of us. So blessings to each of you as you position this community as an enduring masterpiece, a place of thriving for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Betsy. Commissioners, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes commissioners would like to see? Seeing none, next item is communications. City Manager Ritzma.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. So now we are down to public hearings. So next on the agenda, we will hold one public hearing covering 2 NFP ordinances. I would now like to open a public hearing to receive comments on the 2 ordinances. The first is an ordinance amending the text of Chapter 50, Article 6 of the zoning code regarding the natural features protection overlay. And the second is an ordinance amending the zoning map regarding the natural features protection overlay. Following the public hearing, we will consider, let's see here, all right, vote on these 2 items separately. Is there a staff presentation on these items, Manager Ritzma?
Yes, Jamie McCarthy is present to provide a presentation on these 2 items.
Thank you, City Manager Ritzma, and good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I am going to share my screen here a moment. I have just a few slides to give you a quick presentation of where we are this evening. So tonight, I'm going to present a recommendation from both the Planning Commission and the NFP Review Board for some amendments to both that map and the text of Chapter 50, Article 6, which covers the NFP standards. The purpose of the amendments came about really for 2 reasons. The first is when the NFP ordinance was originally adopted by the city in 2019, we relied on the future land use map and the master plan. And at that time, we made a commitment to a second phase of NFP, where we would evaluate that map and look at natural features throughout the city and make some recommendations or any changes that might be warranted. And we did this because we knew that the NFP areas on the map didn't always align with our neighborhood plans and didn't cover all of the natural features in the city. And then really the second reason for the amendments is that we're taking the lessons that we've learned from applying this code for the past 2 years, and we're listening to feedback that we've received from the public. Since adoption, the NFP Review Board has reviewed just over a dozen properties for redevelopment, both residential and commercial. And these projects have all moved forward successfully and able to manage those NFP standards. So to date, it's worked really well. But we also recognize that there are some changes that would help to clarify the interpretation in some ways and to streamline the code. And then we've also heard from residents, many of whom generally agreed with NFP, but had some concerns over some of the complicated rules. In particular, they had a lot of comments about the tree standards. So we're making some suggestions and some changes related to that. Okay. In terms of timeline, after NFP was originally adopted, we began the map analysis right away that fall. And so about a year ago, summer of 2020, we started our engagement process. And we started with a draft map and a survey asking folks for feedback and really to point out natural features throughout the city that are important to them that may have been missed. We advertised the project in View from the Curb over the last year. We've used city social media. We've communicated through neighborhood associations. We've held several town halls and Q&A sessions and mailed notice letters both to property owners and adjacent property owners a couple of times. And then the NFP Review Board had, they met jointly with the Planning Commission this spring to talk very specifically about this phase and the changes that they were proposing. So from that process, we have the map that we're looking at today. You can see it's a little hard to see citywide. And so we created an interactive online map. So users could zoom right into their neighborhood, down to the parcel level. They could click on a parcel and see why it qualifies for NFP. And here's an example right here where you'd click and see the information about the natural features in the property. The NFP Review Board took the approach of being very data-driven in producing this map. So parcels are either in or they're out of the map based on the natural features and the publicly available data that we were able to use. And it includes both public and private parcels because it focuses on identifying those natural features, and it does not really focus on ownership, right? Because ownership is fluid and it'll change, over time. I will point out that there are parcels in this overlay district that are owned by other governmental entities. So we're talking about school districts, the county, WMU, and public utilities are exempt often from following the city's zoning code in many cases, and this would include NFP. But if ownership and use change over time, these properties could then become subject to NFP, and that's the reason why they're included in the map. Okay, so for my last slide here, I wanted to talk about the text amendments a little bit. There are 4 proposed amendments that came out of the Planning Commission meeting last month. And then the 5th on this list is actually a staff proposed amendment that it's just kind of come about since that Planning Commission meeting. So the first one here is the tree standard. We're looking at simplifying the replacement list, and that tree replacement is only required when you go through site plan review. So that's mostly our commercial and our multifamily projects. The second amendment is to the woodland criteria. So the one change in that criteria would help the definition fit the urban forest that we see more often in Kalamazoo. So it's helping give us a little more coverage and a little more definition to woodlands when we're doing site plan review. The third one is native plants. And so in the zoning ordinance, there are some required landscaping. Mostly it's for, again, those commercial and multifamily projects, but native plants would be required for that required landscaping. And then landscaping species could be approved, other species could be approved through the NFP Review Board. And so you wouldn't require a special variance for a single plant or something like that. Number 4 is the bonding requirement that's currently in the code. And instead of requiring bonding on all projects, of different size, of different scope, this would be reserved for projects that are meeting specific criteria, and that's spelled out in the amendment. And then the last amendment on the list was explained in a memo that's in the agenda packet. It would be voted on separately after the public hearing. I'm happy to provide more of a description if it's requested or desired by the commission, but otherwise, this kind of covers what I have. I can wrap up and answer any questions.
Thank you, Jamie McCarthy. Are there questions for staff at this time? It's been a very good explanation. Commissioner Pradel.
Sure. Jamie, thanks so much for the presentation. For the disturbance definition, I believe that was tied to some feedback from Friendship Village. Would you mind explaining kind of a little bit about the background and how that came to be?
Yeah, so we were contacted by Friendship Village. It was after the Planning Commission meeting. And so it was the first time we really got to talking about their properties in particular. And they brought up something that staff feels like probably requires an amendment to make sure that we're really clear about certain activities that not only might happen at Friendship Village by residents there and programming that they have, but land stewardship activities, removing invasive species, planting types of gardens. I think it's a memorial garden at Friendship Village in particular that they're concerned about. That those kinds of activities done by a school group, done by a volunteer group, would not meet the definition of disturbance. And that is staff's current interpretation. But if you look strictly at how the ordinance is written, just to be sure that there's no unintended consequence, unintended penalty, adding the clarifying language that's in your agenda packet would help to make sure that those kinds of activities aren't considered disturbance, which is meant for your more typical development type disturbance, land clearing, regrading, things of that nature.
Jamie, could you also just share, I know you, in the packet it describes that you guys use a data-driven approach to select parcels in an objective and fair manner. Can you explain how that process worked, and how do you made how you made determinations to make sure that the applying criteria was done in a consistent and fair manner?
Yes. So the NFP review board helped kind of drive what data sources we used. And so we used publicly available data like the National Wetlands Inventory. We did our own slope analysis using topography and digital elevation map that was available through USGS. We compiled and layered on all of these different data sources. And then we put our city's parcel map over top of that. And so places where these, these natural features showed up on a parcel, those are the parcels that were included in the NFP overlay district. We did make sure, to put out to folks that, if they had just, errors in that map, that, it showed a stream and there is no stream, it showed something that just isn't there, and they could give us, information that's a way that we might revise the map. For the most part, we found that the mapping has been quite accurate, and that the rezoning or variance process is a way that is already set up in a fair way for folks to further look at some of those if they feel like they can obtain some of their own data or their own information to present to the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Prater. Yeah. Other questions for staff? Seeing no other questions for staff at this time. Thank you, Jamie McCarthy. I appreciate that. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, are there any public comments on this item?
Yes, sir, we have some, and so we will begin playing those public comments for these public hearings.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I am Wendy Denning, resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I support adoption of Phase 2 of the Natural Features Ordinance. I was born here. My family lives here. I've had an office downtown for 30 years. I invested in Kalamazoo. I love this city. I appreciate the Commission's work managing and taking care of the city of Kalamazoo. As a business owner in Kalamazoo for so long, over 30 years, I have encountered rules and regulations imposed by the city that I don't always support. Change is uncomfortable for some. However, it is inevitable. The city is sometimes helpful, suggesting ways in which new plans can be made compatible to both sides. I visit parks and wooded areas in Kalamazoo weekly, and my grandchildren often accompany me. I love fresh air and the out of doors. Climate change has demonstrated this summer that it is real. As the stewards of our beloved city, for the sake of our grandchildren and kids beyond, please give final approval to Phase 2 of the Natural Features Protection Ordinance. Thank you, Wendy Denning.
Hi, I'm leaving a comment for the NFP overlay, and I'm Tracy Lynn and live in Kalamazoo County, and I want to thank the Planning Commission for unanimously recommending approval to the updates to the Natural Features Protection Overlay. I'm asking that the Kalamazoo City Commission approve the proposed updates. The importance of protecting natural areas cannot be overstated. Biodiversity is in jeopardy everywhere, so everything we can do to protect existing natural areas has great meaning and benefit. Ecosystem benefits are public health benefits to people. Natural areas are what give us clean air, water, soil, lessen the harmful effects of climate change, and also are places to decompress. All of these benefits are economic benefits as well. And people certainly became aware of the importance of natural areas to their mental health during COVID. Protection of what limited natural areas we have in the city of Kalamazoo is also important to drawing people into the city, bringing what many would perceive as a more tangible economic benefit to the city. People are drawn to cities that feel clean and green. With so many positive benefits, I strongly encourage the Commission to approve the NFP overlay, and I thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Matthew Carpenter, and I am a Kalamazoo County resident. I would like to make a public comment in support of the NFP overlay, Phase 2. I have seen this area in the 20 years that I have lived here lose a great deal of green space, and it's always disheartening to see that go by the wayside. We have lost wetlands, we have lost forest land, we have lost so many areas, and green space is one of the elements of a home and an area where one lives that makes it appealing. And people, in the light of COVID, we've seen people go out in droves to any natural areas they can find because they've been so compelling. And I think people are connecting with these areas more and more. So in the interest of maintaining biodiversity, which we have lost so much of and continue to lose so much of, and in the interest of making Kalamazoo an even more appealing place to live and to recreate, I ask that you please consider passing and approving the Natural Features Protection Phase 2 map. Thank you very much.
My name is Joe Gizmondo, and I live in Kalamazoo County, and I would like to comment on the NFP ordinance proposal. I'm the owner of 60 acres in the westerlymost part of the city. Actually, it's 60 acres that was purchased by the city to do a cemetery decades ago, and was then sold by the city to a private cemetery company, and they were not successful, and they sold the 60 acres to us. The 60 acres is almost totally wooded, and when we first learned that the city was adding our property into the proposed NFP project, we were quite alarmed because of the 25% requirement that in essence, it would be taking 15 acres of our 60 acres into preservation. But after discussion with Christina and several others in the city, we have changed our position from being opposed to supporting, and it is with the understanding that those people who are going to be monitoring this program and administering the program understand that every piece of property that this affects is unique, and that there needs to be some degree of flexibility so that the best possible results occur. So again, this is Joe Gizmondo, and I support the new ordinance.
My name is Judy Huxman, and I live in the Oakwood neighborhood. I'm calling to express my support for Phase 2 of the NFP ordinance. I'm asking you to do this right thing by approving the NFP Phase 2 ordinance for the city of Kalamazoo, which will go a long way to protect the remaining natural areas within Kalamazoo City from poorly planned development and erasure. Thank you.
This is Bonnie Elkema, and I am a city resident of Kalamazoo. And I'm calling to say that I am very much in favor of the Natural Features Protection Ordinance 2. And to say again that the City Commission, in their meeting when they asked Christina Anderson to originally help design the NFP ordinance, you folks were given her 6 months in order to put that all together. And it was understood that this was a tight timeline and that there was a moratorium on all sorts of developments so that she would be able to put this together. And the first NFPO would probably need some adjusting because of the tight timeline. And tonight we have the second part of the Natural Features Protection Ordinance 2, which addresses that and helps to expand the NFPO to cover all the areas that we need to do it. I am very much in favor of you approving this tonight. Thank you.
My name is Richard Stewart. I'm a city resident within the Southtown neighborhood. I wanted to include my support for the adoption of the Natural Features Protection Phase 2, as it includes a number of areas in Southtown that we wish to keep as green space, natural watershed, and natural wildlife habitat. It's unfortunate that some of our neighboring neighborhoods are trying to push the redevelopment of our natural green space, and we'd like our Southtown neighborhood plan to be included with the imagined Kalamazoo 2025 master plan, as green space and natural watershed is a priority to the Southtown neighborhood. It does not seem to be a priority in some of the other neighborhood plans. So thank you for adopting this program tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tina McClinton. I live at 310 Lake Street. I am from Kalamazoo, and I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I've owned my home for 36 years. I live in Southtown neighborhood. I am calling for the NFP Overlay Protection 2 to be accepted by the City Commission to protect our green space from destruction. See, this little green space between Lake and Stockspit helps us with flooding, because as a natural watershed, has wetlands, it's on a floodplain. We only have this one little green space left in our whole neighborhood of Southtown. This is our last little piece of country in the city that we all enjoy. We have lots of wildlife there. Ever since KBCC took away 12 acres of natural green space, we now flood 2 to 3 times every year. Storm drains back up in the streets and back up the sanitary sewers, and that is what floods our streets and our homes and businesses. Your residents of Kalamazoo should not have to deal with this every year. Please stop taking away green spaces to build, especially in poor neighborhoods. especially in known flooding areas. We need green spaces to survive with climate change. The flooding we have in Southtown neighborhood is worse and worse every year. We hope you really save this green space between Lake and Stockbridge, and do not destroy our last piece of country in our neighborhood. Leave it as is, as a natural feature, and not develop on any of it. And just wanted to let you know I never received a letter again, and neither did 5 of my neighbors. Thank you, NFP, for putting our last green space in the NFP Protection 2 plan. Thank you for listening to us in our neighborhood. We are a poor neighborhood, so no one else listens to us. Thank you for adding Lake and Stockbridge, our neighborhood, Lake and Stockbridge, last green space. Our neighborhood plan for Southtown neighborhood protects this green space. And thank you for adding it to your protection. Goodbye.
Ms. Lori Holmes, and I live on High Point Drive, one of the areas that's designated to be covered by the expansion of the Natural Features Ordinance. I urge the City Commission to adopt the ordinance tonight so that we do not become a city of hypocrites. The city has acknowledged the climate crisis, but if we don't add action to that declaration, they will be just empty words. If there are some details in the ordinance that don't work well, we can change them. Only experience will tell us if that is true. Meanwhile, by passing this ordinance, we will be showing that we mean what we say about the kind of city we wish to leave to our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Hillary Hunt calling. I live in Parkview Hills in Kalamazoo, and I'm calling in support of the Natural Features Protection Phase 2 map. I'm really glad that we're going to have this overlay, which will help protect our existing natural areas, which benefit people, biodiversity, and the climate. I'm really, really thrilled to see the expansion in the area where I live in Parkview Hills. There's a lot of really incredible natural features down there, and I'm so glad that our shared outdoor spaces will be protected. Thank you.
My name is Donna Keller, and I reside in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm calling to urge city commissioners to approve the Natural Features Protection Phase 2 overlay. Even a casual consumer of the news knows that environmental degradation is having devastating effects worldwide. It's easy to feel that we have little power to reverse insect and bird population decline, horrifying weather events, poisoned water supplies, and the like. But you, city commissioners, have the opportunity tonight to make a real difference by expanding natural features protections here in our city. Should the NFP Phase 2 overlay pass tonight, steep slopes in the city will be protected, preventing runoff from affecting local waterways. Existing tree canopies that host diverse and crucial insect, bird, and mammal populations will stay intact. Native plants that benefit diverse native fauna will be prioritized over introduced species that benefit few or none. Embrace this opportunity to make real and lasting change in the city of Kalamazoo by supporting the NFP Phase 2 overlay before you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mitch Leto. I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I live in the Vine neighborhood, and I also wear the hat of the chair of the Natural Features Protection Review Board. And I wanted to call and make a comment. And first off, I just wanted to thank the City Commission for reviewing this very important issue tonight that I know is as important to all of you as it is to us and other city residents. And that this is something that for 3 years now we have been working on and Imagine Kalamazoo before that, knowing that this is something that the community had wanted. And I'd just like to say I'm very proud of this group and our review board. We represent consultants, developers and housing, folks that have worked in infrastructure and maintenance, as well as natural resources and environmental professionals. And we all work, live, and play in Kalamazoo, and we're very proud of this product, the Natural Features Protection Phase 2, and are excited to see it apply to that place that we live and work in. And in the last year or so, we've met even above and beyond our regular volunteer meetings to really pick apart these pieces of this ordinance to make sure that we did everything very, very thoroughly. And I'm really proud to say that I feel that everything is really data driven and therefore can be applied really objectively and equitably across the different regions of Kalamazoo and the different residents and developers that will be encountering this zoning. And it really represents a balance and compromise in our eyes. After these several years of reviewing projects that required an ordinance under the Natural Features Protection Phase 1, we've approved all projects up to this point, including a couple that needed to be tabled. We asked that the applicants made some tweaks, which in some cases improved the overall product, and we really feel like we have provided support and solutions for these folks, and so have not, stopped any kind of development, but in fact have hopefully improved them. We've known since Imagine Kalamazoo, and even before that, that our residents, city staff, all really committed to sustainability and climate change goals, kind of at the core of what the city is all about, and goals that include natural features as part of that solution. And we see this phase 2 as a tool to put that to the test. And of course, especially with the recent news of the Foundation for Excellence, we're all really excited to see Kalamazoo grow. It's a place that we all love, but we are all very excited to see smart development that doesn't compromise the city infrastructure or degrade the quality of life for the residents and the folks that use the city. And with that, I'll thank you and have a good night.
Good evening. I'm Diana Morton Thompson and a member of the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Association Board. I've been asked to read the board statement into tonight's record. The board of the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Association supports the Natural Features Protection Phase 2 map and proposed ordinance changes. The board commends and thanks the NFP Review Board, Ms. Jamie McCarty, City Sustainable Development Coordinator, and Mr. Nolan Bergstrom, the city intern specializing in GIS applications, for their diligence and perseverance. In the opinion of the board, the documents described above align with the city master plan, align with the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Plan, now incorporated into the city's master plan, and set a logical and equitable foundation for managing and protecting the natural features in the city of Kalamazoo, both now and for generations to come. Thank you.
Pamela Green at 322 Lake Street. I am definitely for the NFP to protect the area over in Southtown neighborhood. We really don't need anything built over there. It's a flood zone. And I would appreciate it if you would at least take in consideration that it is a flood zone. And if you build something, it's just going to drown us. We've talked about this. We've been talking about it for a long time. So I hope that you agree with the NFP and try to protect this area. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Diana Morton Thompson, and I live in the Oakland Drive Winchell neighborhood, and I'm a registered professional geologist. I have not one, but 2 parcels of land that would be included in the NFP Phase 2 overlay area. And I'm here this evening to voice my personal opinion and let you know that I am proud and I am grateful to have my land, my home, my backyard covered by the NFP Phase 2 map and ordinance revisions. Proud because the NFP Phase 2 is not only technically sound and logical, in many ways, it's quite visionary. It is the culmination of years of work, starting with the Imagine Kalamazoo 2025 Master Plan and continuing in subsequent neighborhood plans and in a myriad of other climate action and sustainability plans that have been acted within the city. The NFP Phase 2 is consistent with these plans, and consequently, it reflects the values and the will of the community at large, as expressed over a number of years. And I am grateful, yes, grateful knowing that my small patch of urban woods that has brought countless hours of joy to my family as we watch the daily and seasonal changes, that thanks to NFP Phase 2, this small patch of urban woods will have a chance to bring joy to future generations. So here we all stand at this pivotal moment in the history of Kalamazoo, and you, the City of Commissioners, have before you the NFP Phase 2 with an important decision to make. Do you succumb to the fears and ignorance of a selfish few, or do you approve the NFP Phase 2, showing that you respect the will of the community at large, that you uphold the integrity of the Imagine Kalamazoo Plan and other associated plans and proclamations? Do you support a beautiful and sustainable and vibrant community? You have a unique opportunity right here, right now, to make a significant positive difference that will improve quality of life for all of us now and for generations to come. Not everyone has this opportunity. So how are you going to explain your actions right here tonight to your children and grandchildren? Think about this and vote to approve NFP Phase 2. Vote for a sustainable city that we all can enjoy. And let us all be proud and grateful together for this unique opportunity. Vote yes. Thank you. This is Constance Hubble. I'm calling to let you know that we, my husband Frederick and I are very much in favor of the Natural Features Ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last public comment that we've received for the public hearings for items E1 and E2.
Thank you very much, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, and I want to thank everyone who took the time and made the effort to call in and provide public comments on these hearings tonight. So understanding there's no more comments, I'd like to close the public hearing. So commissioners, the recommended action for item E1, an ordinance amending Chapter 15, Article 6, is a motion to adopt the ordinance. However, there is a recommendation from staff to amend the definition of the word disturbance in the proposed ordinance. City Manager Ritzma, do you have that amended language?
I do, Mayor, and I will read the amendment. A motion to amend and adopt clarifying language to the definition of the term disturbance at section 50-1.3 to add the following phrase to the end of the definition. Except when any of these activities are done in order to maintain or improve ecosystem health, mitigate or prevent erosion and sedimentation, or mitigate harm, such as by removal of invasive or diseased vegetation to the natural feature.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a commissioner who would like to offer that motion?
So moved.
A motion made by Commissioner Cunningham, supported by Commissioner Hess. Any discussion on the amendment to the motion? See none, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll for the motion to amend?
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
See Vice Mayor Griffin muting and unmuting, it looks like. Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion to amend passes. Before us now is the recommendation to adopt the amended ordinance. This is the ordinance amending the text of Chapter 50, Article 6 of the zoning code regarding the Natural Features Protection Overlay. Is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Hess, supported by Commissioner Urban. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Hess.
Not a lot of discussion, but I really want to thank all the people that have emailed and called in support of this work, and that have really acknowledged the work of both the Planning Commission and the Natural Features Board. As the liaison, the commission liaison to Environmental Concerns Committee, the Environmental Concerns did put forth a recommendation that they strongly support phase 2. And they have always noted the effectiveness of the ordinance in its initial phase, as the staff and NFP board have worked constructively with developers in the city to take into account environmental features as they plan their projects. The map and list of proposed parcels reflects thoughtful and careful consideration of features which ordinarily might be overlooked. The increased care for the green environment of the city is important in view of the challenges brought about by climate change and increasing urban density everywhere. We are pleased that Kalamazoo is investing thought and effort into preserving green elements, thus encouraging smarter and more sustainable development in our city. And this is a wonderful group of thoughtful individuals, and they support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess.
Thank you. Yep.
Other discussion? Is that you? Seeing no one or hearing no one at this point. Did I miss anybody in any discussion? So I would just like to note something at this point, and that is that the commission is going to be voting on this ordinance, and obviously that's important. That's how our charter works, is that for it to become an ordinance, ultimately the commission has to vote on it. But as you might have noted, and this is not an exception, but oftentimes when we are voting on something like this, an important ordinance, there has been a great deal of time spent by many other individuals who live in the city of Kalamazoo, and even more particularly those who serve on boards in the city of Kalamazoo, often without any recognition. So as we're just looking at this, this is an item that went to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission is not an easy job, and sometimes you say no to people that are your friends, and it's hard to get that feedback. So I want to recognize those members of the Planning Commission that do that work month in and month out. Commissioner Hess noted another group, which is the Environmental Concerns Group, which is an advisory body to the commission that spends a great deal of time thinking about things environmental in Kalamazoo and provides advice to us, like the statement that Commissioner Hess read tonight. There's a new body, which you heard from the chair of that body, which is the Natural Features Protection Advisory Body. I hope I'm getting the full name right, that has spent a great deal of time working on this, evaluating, and bringing it to us. So this is a culmination of the work and investment of time and intelligence from a great number of people that care about this place that we all live together. So I want to say thank you to everyone who participated in that, and to the individuals who called in to communicate their wishes to us tonight. I'm assuming there's not further discussion. I didn't see anybody's hand before. So seeing none, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The ordinance is adopted. Now we have a recommended action for item E2. And this is the ordinance amending the zoning map. And it's a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Urban. Supported by Commissioner Cunningham. Is there any discussion on this item? Commissioner Pradle.
Yeah, just to emphasize the footprint. think it was in phase one, it was like 376 parcels. And with the addition of phase two, I think it's over 1,800 parcels. I think, Jamie, maybe you can correct me on that, but it's significant. It's a big statement. I think, both these actions tonight are a great precursor to the sustainability and climate action plans that we have forthcoming for the city as well. You can't put destruction of these natural features back in the bag once they're gone. And, unfortunately, when those kind of decisions aren't done in a thoughtful way, ultimately people are making decisions that are going to impact generations of residents. And so I'm just really grateful to see that this was such a thoughtful process, and thank everybody who's been engaged and involved.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Any other discussion? Seeing none, there's just a comment I'd like to make, and is that I most certainly appreciate everyone's input on the concept of what we're doing by expanding the footprint, by the detailed work we've done to identify properties. But I want to call something out that I think is a little unusual, and that is that we had a very, a local developer who does very, very large projects that happens to have a very large parcel, which actually a portion of it really is used to be in Ashtamo Township until the city purchased it. And the fact that this developer, at the potential, I guess, loss to himself, Joe Gizmondo, took the time and made the effort to call in support of this ordinance, even though it will indeed have a very direct impact on a parcel that he, as a developer, intends to do something with. So I really appreciate that input, and I think that's meaningful. So thanks to all, once again, who called in. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Thank you all. The ordinance is adopted. Next is the opportunity for general public comments. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, do we have general public comments?
Yes, sir. We do have a few general comments, and we'll begin with those.
Hello, my name is Chris Glasser, and I am a Kalamazoo resident living on the east side. I would like my government on all levels to be accessible to all members of the public. And for people who want to be informed and educated of what's going on, that can be a tall task. If you look at federal, state government, you'll be inundated with bills, resolutions, and hearings. And just on the local level, you have the city and county commissions meeting twice a month for several hours at a time, and that can be a lot for a citizen to take in. Similarly with me, I don't really have time always to go back and watch a couple hours worth of meetings, so I decided to go onto the city website and I was going to look up the meeting minutes for the previous meeting to see what was going on. I figured that'd be a nice way to get a gist of what was going on without going through 2 hours of meetings. And it was at that time that I realized that meeting minutes were not available for the previous meeting. In fact, there are no minutes available for any meetings dating back to May. The May 17th meeting is the last meeting which minutes are available. Now, I don't know what a reasonable timeline for getting minutes out and posting them to the website is, but 3 months is not it. So I would like some comment as to why that is the case, and hopefully a promise to get that process sped up and make sure that minutes are available to citizens. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy Fields. I am a city resident of Kalamazoo. I'm calling out of concern for the welfare of residents, pedestrians, and property owners due to the speeding traffic that happens daily on my street. I have reached out to Kalamazoo City, and I plan to make a follow-up call again tomorrow. I called last week about the same concerns. I live near a street. I live near a church and an elementary school. And with school opening back up in a week or two, it really, really concerns me. There's expedition driving in the parking lot, speeding. And so with that, I'm reaching out to ask for speed humps. That's what I called for last week. Although I think they're very ugly, I think that they're very necessary to help keep our streets, at least my street anyway, safe. And I just would like something to be done. So I do expect a follow-up call or to be contacted. So with that, thank you. Look forward to hearing from you. Have a good night.
My name is Casey Coker. I live in the Stewart neighborhood here in the city of Kalamazoo. I am calling to talk about the prioritization and stimulus money, making sure that we are lifting up and centering community voice in those decisions, making sure that we're homeless or we're addressing homelessness and equity and health equity and resources and food scarcity and issues that are really central to what our community is struggling with right now. Also, I think a lot of folks like myself are curious as to what's happening with the mayoral campaign coming up this fall and trying to figure out what's going on with it.
Mr. Mayor, that was the last call, and I think we lost the end of it on that person's cell phone.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. I appreciate that. Once again, I want to very specifically thank all those who took time to call in. That's important. I appreciate it. And maybe we'll have an opportunity to respond to a couple of those things by particular folks a little later on. We are now to our consent agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 8 items this evening. First is the approval of the purchase of a Ford F-550 hydro-stop truck from Gorno Ford through the My Deal Cooperative Purchasing Program in the amount of $128,560. Next is the approval of the purchase of a Ford F-550 service repair truck from Gorno Ford through the My Deal Cooperative Purchasing Program in the amount of $141,098. Next is the approval of the purchase of a Ford F-550 hydrant service repair truck from Gorno Ford through the My Deal Cooperative Purchase Program in the amount of $153,788. Next is the approval of a 1-year contract extension with Republic Services for the transportation and disposal of plant screenings from the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant in the amount of $166,005. Next is the approval of a contract with Volcama Excavating Incorporated for the Skipper's Leaf Compost Site Public Utility Improvements Project in the amount of $615,635. And approval of amendments to the fiscal year 2021 budgets for the Solid Waste Fund in the amount of $260,300 and the Wastewater Capital Improvement Fund in the amount of $206,000. Next is the adoption of a resolution designating the polling facility location for Precinct 17 to be used during the election on November 2, 2021, and at each election thereafter. Next is the approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Kalamazoo Regional Education Service Agency, Youth Opportunities Unlimited, YOU, for YOU to administer the Summer Youth Employment Program in the amount of $825,000. And finally, authorization for the city manager to grant a bilateral permit to 123.net Incorporated pursuant to the Metropolitan Extension Telecommunications Right-of-Way Oversight Act.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 through 8 and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Cunningham,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Knott. Thank you so much. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Items on the consent agenda are approved. Next is H, our regular agenda. First item is item H1. City Manager Ritzma.
Approval of the purchase of 322 East Stockbridge Avenue, 216 East Emerson Street, and 218 East Emerson Street from Louis J. Ide Family Trust in the amount of $2 million, and approve an amendment to the 2021 Foundation for Excellence Aspirational Fund budget in the amount of $2 million, with the intent to facilitate the development of permanent housing units, wetland restoration, and small commercial development consistent with Imagine Kalamazoo Master Plan and Edison Neighborhood Plan.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report at this time?
We have Community Planning Economic Development Director Kick available for any questions that might arise or the commission might have. I do want to clarify, and I think there was a caller in the Committee of the Whole meeting that mentioned this property as being acquired by the city, and also a property on Elcott that Hollander Development is considering a project on. These are two separate projects, and I think those two were getting conflated by the caller. Also, I want to note that this property on Stockbridge in the surrounding area used to be is a vacant shopping mall originally, and bingo hall. So the plan is, we don't have plans right now on exactly what's going to be there, but we want to secure the site and provide opportunities for affordable housing in the future.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Welcome, Director Kick. Nice to see you here. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Commissioner Pradel.
Hey, Director Kick, last meeting, we had asked a question about potential just maintenance costs of the property and whatnot, and very much appreciated the fact that you did follow up with some estimates. Do you mind just sharing, what your findings were and what that would look like?
Sure. This is Director Kick. Thank you, Commissioner Pradel, for allowing me to share that information with the public. So the current owner, the Ides family, shared with me their carrying costs for consumers' energy, an alarm company, and taxes. Also, a little bit of mowing and plowing. Since the parcel has been vacant, it was very low. It was $1,500 for this past year. So possibly if there were a tenant in that space, it could double. But the total carrying costs for the building with the electricity and the alarm company were just under $30,000 per year. So we would take that on.
Any other questions, Commissioner Pradel? Other questions for Director Kick? Yes, Commissioner Urban.
Well, wouldn't of course the taxes that the Ide family was paying, we're not going to collect them anymore because now we own the property. So in that sense, that cost won't go on to us, but we're also losing the opportunity cost of taxes coming from someone else into the city. So it's a small point, but it's not fair to include the taxes. It's, in a way, we're losing tax income by acquiring this property as it is now. Now, as it gets developed, we have a potential of seeing a huge increase in tax base from this thing. But it's got to be done right, and it's got to be done with public participation, and I'm sure it will be.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Other questions for staff at this time? Seeing none at this time, just Director Kick, could you remind us a little bit here about the timeline and any due diligence that will still need to occur and that sort of thing?
Thank you, Mayor. So we have completed our phase 1 for the property. We are due to complete our phase 2 on the property before closing, as well as a baseline environmental assessment. And those will both be completed within the next 30 days.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, seeing no more discussion, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Actually, we need a motion.
I'm sorry. How about a motion? All right. So thank you, Commissioner Pradel. So yes, is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the purchase of the property at 322 Stockbridge and the other 2 properties on Emerson as a package for a total cost of $2 million.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Knott. All right, now, any discussion? All right, seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next are reports and legislation. City Manager Ritzman, do you have a report?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to take a moment to address a lingering question that was raised last week as part of the OIR group's presentation of their independent report of our responses to the events of last summer. That is the question about information provided by the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety to the OIR group during their investigation. As was clarified by the OIR group at our meeting last Tuesday, they confirmed that KDPS did provide the information that was requested and that KDPS did not withhold information. In the near future, the OIR group will be issuing a supplement to the report clarifying this exchange of information between KDPS and the OIR group. The city administration and KDPS are already working on steps to implement the recommendations of the report, and we remain focused on improving, learning from our mistakes, and better serving the residents of Kalamazoo. At the September 7 Committee of the Whole meeting, I will bring to the Commission our next steps and timelines for moving forward with the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Ritzman. Any questions for Manager Ritzman at this time? All right, seeing none. We don't have any policy items or new business tonight. So at this time, we're down to commissioner comments. Commissioner Urban.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. After what the city manager has just communicated to us, I can abbreviate my comments somewhat. I'm grateful for his statement. I think that was very satisfactory. But I want to continue with a part that I think is more forward-looking. I'm looking more toward the changes in the future. And that is that the extensive detail in the OIR report was there to provide justification for their recommendations, not to assign blame. It should be read as a forward-looking document. What I expect going forward from KDPS is a learning organization. Police departments are not known for being learning organizations. They're known for being enforcing organizations. given the complexity of what we witnessed last summer, it's clear that our city's department and many others around the country have a lot to learn about how to handle civil disturbances, First Amendment assemblies, and the likelihood of admixture of opportunistic disruptors confusing the picture. It's very complicated, very hard to manage, and all of us need to learn all we can from everything that happens. I would say, in my own experience, that I was very fortunate to have as a model a learning organization, which was the chemical division of the Upjohn Company, because I and my colleagues made some bonehead mistakes while I was there, and two in particular I was directly involved with. One of them, by the way, was could have affected the Kalamazoo wastewater treatment plant, because we inadvertently had sent a truckload worth of caustic down the city sewer. And that could have disrupted the wastewater system for days. Well, I wasn't fired. Instead, everybody around me, including me, got to work on what went wrong and how can we make sure it doesn't happen again. And we did that. And I think our organization became stronger and felt more competent, at least in that area, as a result of that. And so I know that you can face a very serious setback and take it as an opportunity. I think Chief Coakley is doing that. And I want him to do all he can to convince the public that he's doing that, and to admit what's when they're wrong, and tell us very quickly what they plan to do to fix it. And this goes for all of the people that work for him as well, because he sets the example, and I think he sets a good example. So my support is there for him. Something else I want to do in support of Chief Coakley is he sent us a note a couple of weeks ago about a trend that was quite alarming to him. And that is of people crossing police lines to get a better cell phone video shot and not retreating when asked to do so by the officers there. Disobeying police officers, even for something as innocent as getting a good video, can frighten the police. And it makes their work harder and more complicated. You, as the public dealing with the police, have the power to frighten the police. I beg you, for heaven's sake, for your sake, and for your community's sake, please don't abuse that power.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Commissioner Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. I will keep it short tonight. Prayers to all of those who have been affected by gun violence over the weekend. Notably, we saw an officer lose his life. Again, these are the type of things that we have to continuously work on and try to address to improve the safety in our community. And I know that we spoke in our COW meeting earlier, committee of the whole meeting earlier, about investing in our youth. It's an understatement. I think that that is the place that a lot of our success will end and begin. Is to ensure that our youth have opportunity and avenues to take advantage of that, create the success that we want for them. Unfortunately, they have to see and feel a lot of the things that we're dealing with today, but hopefully we find ways to improve it moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cunningham. Commissioner Knott.
Sure, just briefly. During my Friday briefing call as part of my service on the Protect Michigan Commission, I learned that the current wave of COVID that we're in, I don't know if it's the fourth now, if we'd say we're beginning the fifth, but wherever we are, the administration and health experts are not anticipating a peak until the end of September, first part of October. So for all of us in Kalamazoo, school starts very soon. Western students are moving back, KVCC starting, K College, et cetera. So we just all need to be diligent, making sure that folks are out there and getting the vaccines that are available. Recently, it's been approved that immunocompromised individuals and probably soon elderly folks will be eligible for a third booster shot vaccine. And I just can't encourage people strongly enough to mask up when you're out in public right now. We're not out of the woods yet. And again, the peak at this point is anticipated not to hit until the end of September.
Important, Commissioner Knott. I appreciate that. Commissioner Pradel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to follow up from a couple of the calls tonight. Gentleman Chris Glasser called about the meeting minutes. I think you'll probably know I don't have a whole lot of negative things I can ever say that comes out of the clerk's office, but I will say, when we sometimes get lumps of meeting minutes, I do sometimes find it difficult to recollect what was said or like checking the validity of it because it's been so far. And so I think from both like making sure that they're available to people in a timely way, but also to make sure that we can recollect what happened effectively when we're reviewing them for historical context, I think is helpful. I recognize that it can be a pretty huge task, especially considering that sometimes we have 3-4 hour long meetings and it's compounded by everything else happening. And so, Clerk, I just wonder if there's maybe some possibility that we could find this as a growth opportunity to just say, maybe there's some sort of a target that the public can anticipate when those get published or when they can anticipate them by, so they know to look at them. So I just wanted to offer that feedback, and I hope you understand that I totally understand why that works the way it does. And I'm not meaning it as any critical means, but I do think it is a pretty valid point. For the caller who called about the speeding, just want to encourage people. I know, Chief, you're on the call as well, but please call the non-emergency line to make sure you can log those. Also on KDPS's website, there's a place where you can log those as well. A lot of people will sometimes respond and say, well, it's not like I can get the license plate, or even I might not have been able to get a good description, but it gives leadership the ability to kind of catalog problem areas and identify hot spots where maybe they can do more monitoring and whatnot. And so, even if you've called before, call again. Make sure that they know that what's going on. Tonight at the committee of the whole meeting, we talked about the federal stimulus package that's coming down to the city, the $38.9 million. I really encourage people to watch that if you can. It's well worth the time. But the city administration laid out 5 priority areas, and I think this is just me speaking, but I think they hit it pretty well, bang on the nail in terms of what I've heard from colleagues. But also there were 1,500 survey respondents from the community, which is pretty impressive when you consider we have just under 80,000 residents in the city of Kalamazoo. But I'm going to just reiterate what Commissioner Cunningham said. For me, number one is youth. If we talk about a lot of the challenges that we're going to be facing, as a community coming out of the pandemic, I don't think there is a segment of the population that's been impacted more than by young people. And I think that is the strategy that can do the greatest great for the long term in the long haul. You think about when you fill the $7 million budget gap that we had from 2020 and 2021 that we have to devote to, at least $31 million to devote. And even if we split the 5 priorities up equally, we still have $6 million you could potentially devote to each of those priorities, which could be absolutely game changing. And then lastly, don't want to walk away with the weight of the NFP passage tonight. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And a lot of people worked very hard and spent a lot of time in that. And, I just want to thank, again, Jamie McCarthy, the NFP review board, also the Planning Commission for all their work as well. Because I think Mayor said it best, a lot of times you see us up here making these approvals, but there's been so much vetting and work that's gone into it. They really make our job lighter lifting. And so we really appreciate all the work that they've put in. So thank you so much. Wish everybody a good evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Hess.
A few things, Mayor. I would like to thank you for lifting up blessings for Ryan Proxmeyer. and for his family, his wife, and 4 children. That's important that we keep him in our thoughts and prayers. I want to thank Sister Betsy for her wise words about listening to that still small voice, and that we do chip away at all of the things that are seemingly imperfect, which is what we do here in our work. And then using our resources in a really positive way, and putting the masterpiece of this community forward. That said, I have a few comments about some things that have happened in the last few weeks since our last meeting. Thursday, August 5th was really a watershed day for me, because in the evening, I first went to a town hall at the Douglas hosted by Representative Julie Rogers about lead poisoning in Kalamazoo. And on the panel was our own James Baker. Thank you, Director Baker. You were stellar and wonderful. And our department was there representing our water systems very well. Matt Milzarek from KNHS was there talking about how we can mitigate lead in homes. Our community health department was there, and representatives from the state were there talking about this problem of lead. So that was really wonderful and well done. Please know that there are ways to find out about lead mitigation. Anyone connected to Kalamazoo's water system can have your water tested free. Call the city 337-8000 or 311 to have your water tested. And then grants are available for lead abatement in your home at knhs.org or michigan.gov/leadsafe. So please know that these resources are there, and we want everyone in our community to be safe. So I went from there right next door to Kalamazoo Junior Girls, where Pam Rowland was hosting a gathering of folks who care for Martin Luther King Park on Rose Street, and to give an overview of the planned gardens in that area. Pam and the Martin Luther King group have been stellar in keeping up the integrity of that park. And so that was really, really a wonderful collaboration, because our Parks and Rec department have been wonderful about planning and getting MLK Park renovated. And then I went from there to the KNHS home, and I don't know if David, if you're going to talk about this, but the home on Albert Street, that was a collaboration between Foundation for Excellence and KNHS and Home Builders Association and Consumers Energy. It is a highly energy efficient home, done affordably, and is going to be sold to a client of KNHS. So that's really wonderful. And those three actually really helped me see the interconnection of so many entities in our city, and that the city's at the center of it, but everyone's connected, especially the Foundation for Excellence. I really want to thank the foundation. To Commissioner Urban's point about the OIR, you talked about education and learning from things, but in a career of coaching, and it's very public, the results of all of my educational opportunities, you either win or you learn. And in the events of last summer, we learned a lot, and we reached out to say, how can we do better? Just like what you said, Jack. So I appreciate that. And I ask for grace from our community as we continue to do our learning together. We are not perfect, but we are willing. I want to give a short shout out to Parks and Rec again for hosting the Lunchtime Live series. I find them to be very valuable in terms of connecting with community, seeing our community in its best light at noon. And it's from 11:30 to 1:30, and we have 4 more weeks. On Fridays from 11:30 to 1:30, there's entertainment, and there's food, and there's friends, and there's just family and really good energy in our city. So thanks to Parks and Rec for that. Lastly, I want to take a page from Commissioner Pradel, who has encouraged us to recognize employees of the city. I want to recognize city employee Paul Beringa. Paul is a street sweeper operator who happened to come by my home last week while I was outside. I flagged him down, made him stop. And I was greeted with a smile. And I was relieved to see that his vehicle had air conditioning because he is in that vehicle all day, every day. When I asked if I could mention him in my comments and thank him for his service, he was very grateful. He sweeps the streets of our city all day, every day, as I said, and often hears only negative feedback and criticism about what he's not doing. Paul, I want to tell you what you are doing. You're cleaning our streets. You're making our city beautiful for others. So thank you. I hear you loud and clear. I appreciate your commitment to your job, to the city, and for the people of the city. And I thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Vice Mayor Griffin.
I don't know if anyone can hear me. Thank you, Mayor Anderson. I do
We
have
can.
comments, but
We can.
you can? Okay, great. Well, I'm also very spotty on my end. I've been hearing in and out. So I just want to thank you all for your patience. And I will follow up via email with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Glad you were able to be here. Just to reiterate something I've said before, it's actually quite helpful following this crew with comments, because it seems like all the things that are important to get said, and people bring their own experience to that. And that is really how community works. It's all our voices together, and I really appreciate that. I did want to highlight just a couple things here. I think it's very, very timely that resident called in about speeding and exhibition driving and talking about speed humps. I know that Chief Coakley, you're here, and I know Director Baker, you're here. I know both of you are committed to our streets being safe, and perhaps you'll have a chance to reach out to the person who called in and continue to find out how we can work together to ensure, particularly as school is starting, how important it is. We've talked about youth in a couple of our comments tonight. We need to all drive safely and carefully in the city of Kalamazoo. I had a couple other comments which are a little strange for me because in a way they're not directly connected to the city of Kalamazoo, but it's just one thing that's heavy on my heart tonight and one thing that impressed me that last week. I mean, I hate to say it, I guess I'm kind of a sap about it in a way, but I was happy to see this country once again on the top of the gold medal list and the total medal list at the end of the Olympics that happened in Japan. And one of the things that I was particularly proud about, especially as a father of 4 daughters, is that it was the women on the Olympic team that really pushed the count. I think 60% of the medals were won by women, and that's really what gave us the edge in these Olympics. And it also reminds me that we don't necessarily have a system in this country that is state-driven and finds athletes by doing careful surveys and watching playgrounds and looking at genetics. We have people that take their own time and talents and commit to the goals in their own lives. And you see just a fabulous story after another of people making choices, and even more important this year, making choices to be careful about their own mental health. And that's the field that I work in, and I can't tell you how challenging sometimes that is. to actually be public about that. And I think that that deserves a special kind of gold medal. So thank you to everyone who participated from this great country in those Olympics. And the other thing is just, I guess we all knew that it was going to come to this, and you can argue how we got here, but on this day, on the other side of the world, a place where we've spent the last 20 years, there is great disruption, and families are fearing for their lives and are being separated from each other, and that's in Afghanistan. And as I've heard some of the stories today, as we are attempting to manage, our own, very awkward withdrawal from this country where we've spent a generation, really, I'm saddened, and I have hope that for people whose lives will now be changed again, who are leaving behind, that there will be a space for some grace and for some help and support as we really go through what seems to be our final exit for now from there. I want to thank everyone who's watched and participated in this meeting tonight, and more importantly, our great city team who's here, Manager Ritzma, the directors who showed up, our good Chief Vernon Coakley, Director Baker, Deputy City Managers, for all the work that you do. This is a chunk of granite. This is a great monument to living together in a way that supports all of our hope and dreams that were a work in progress, and that we're trying to do that work together here in Kalamazoo. So while we do that work, let's keep our hearts open. I love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned.